is Kelly Doherty. I served in southern Iraq near the city of Nasiriyah at Bilis, March 03 to February 04. We basically sacrificed when we robbed the humanity of other people, and I saw that the impact that that had on my fellow men and women, and really that if I can do anything as a U.S. service person, as a veteran, that I should be doing that. And I didn't really know what it would look like. When I got home, I spoke a little bit about my experience, but not a lot until I met other veterans who are also speaking out. Now, more than ever, people in the military are very frustrated with the ongoing occupation of Iraq. And I think when it comes to issues of the legality of the war, the constitutionality of the war, I would say that the average American doesn't understand those simple things, that the war is in contradiction to our own laws, is unconstitutional, is basically a war of aggression.
I think that the things I can't let go, the things I can't get off my chest, are the times where I knew it was me that took the life. That's something that I can't. I mean, that's something I just can't let go. You know, I can say I didn't know, and I didn't agree, and I didn't understand as much as I want to. But the fact is that hundreds of thousands of Iraqis are dead, and I'm personally responsible for some of those.
There's been 1 million Iraqis killed. Now, I could apologize 1 million times, it wouldn't bring back a single one of them. One of the reasons why I left the military was because I didn't want to take part in that anymore. I didn't want to be that anymore. I took charge of my life and I left. That doesn't undo all the things that I did while I was in Iraq. It doesn't undo all of the people who were killed when I was in Iraq.
You join the military wanting to serve your nation, wanting to defend all these ideals that we hold as Americans, and then you're sent over to another country to subjugate a population of poor people, and many people in the military come from poor families as well. And for no justifiable reason, reasons continue to change over and over. You've been back maybe twice, 3 times, and you see things are getting worse. I think official numbers are 1/3 of all returning service members from Iraq are suffering some sort of post-traumatic stress disorder or other kind of psychological problems, and that's only the people who actually seek help, which many people never will seek help for it.
Since been diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder, the war doesn't go away. I thought when I was over there that when I got back home, it would all just melt away, but that's not how it works. It stays with you, and you dream at night, and you like wake up, you can't sleep, and it's always in your head, you know.
From Iraq to civilian life in 24 hours. And then you bring them back to this, to not being taken care of, to a public who's apathetic about what happens to veterans. And that's the biggest problem, is the apathy. The Congress is apathetic, the administration is apathetic, and the American people are apathetic. They're not at the Veterans Administrations. They're not seeing what we see as veterans.
It is not right to have someone volunteer to wear a uniform and not get the best possible care. I apologize for what they went through, and we're going to fix the problem.
They're going over there and fighting for no reason. They're coming back, and our government won't take care of them. And they're going over there and coming back with PTSD, or they're paralyzed, they're completely disformed or disfigured, and all of this sacrifice, I mean, readily given. They all sacrifice without a second thought. And they come back and they're not taken care of, like the government said they would.
Because the war doesn't end for us when we come home. it keeps going over and over and over again in our heads.
My son was on a second tour. It was during the siege of Fallujah, and the first siege. And when he came back, he was torn apart. He had had many experiences that he didn't feel he could talk about. And often I would get a call in the middle of the night telling me that, you know, Mom, I've got a gun in the mouth. I've got to pull the trigger. I can't live with killing all the innocent women. And the memories of all the innocent women and children that I killed over in Iraq. And he took a lot of personal responsibility. He was artillery, and they would shell areas. And our shells have they're like cluster bombs, and they have these little bombettes that come out of the shell. When he went into a town, Nasiriyah, they had a girl there, and after seeing all the death and destruction, and he saw this girl playing with her brother and her sister, and when he got there and he got closer, he realized what she was playing with was one of the bombettes, and before he could warn her, it exploded and blew off half of her face, her arm, and killed her brother and sister. And I think at that moment he snapped, and he felt the only thing he could do was kill himself. It was the only right thing that he felt he could do to right what wrong he had done and to sacrifice himself. So he joined Iraq Veterans Against the War, and he started speaking out everywhere and anywhere. And he was involved in the protest with the uniforms and everything else. He was the March of the Pentagon. He wore his dress blues with his medals to defy his government and their policies. So the Marine Corps contacted him and said that if he attends, speaks out, or wears his uniform anymore in protest, that they were going to take away all of his medical benefits and all of his disability. Since then, I started wearing his hat at protests and at different things to show that even though they've silenced him, I've now got to speak up twice as loud. They've silenced his voice, but they can't silence mine.
It is the loss of our troops, and it's the destruction of our entire social agenda. We have people who are homeless here. We have schools that are falling apart. We have almost 100 million people out of 300 million people who either don't have health insurance or who are underinsured. We have people who are out of work, unemployed. We don't have. We're borrowing money from China to fight this war in Iraq.
The president's never cared about the Iraqis. The president's never cared about our troops. It's to him everything's a game. And then when the Marines and the soldiers come back, their families, when they don't get their kids back, he doesn't think about them. He just moves on to his next little game. The Iraqi people, to him, 1.2 million Iraqi people, this is nothing to him. He has no concept, I think, of death.
One of the things you might be very anxious about if you were president in a war would be anxious about killing innocent people and having our own troops killed. If you were a normal person as president, you would be anxious about those things. But if you're like him, he says he has no anxiety about it. He sometimes feels bad about it, but basically he sleeps well. He's fine. There's no look of upset on his face. Johnson in Vietnam was like he had his head in his hands a lot. He was very upset about it. Bush is not, and he's not because he banishes anxiety from his mind. He can use religion, he can use exercise, he used to use alcohol. Anxiety is gone, so he does not worry about things that way. Most people see him as a puppet of Cheney's, or people see him as weak, and I think he's very strong. He's actually gotten everything he wants as president. He's been the most successful president probably in history of this country, and yet from his point of view and from getting what he wants. But from the rest of our point of view, or the protesters, he's been the most disastrous president in history.